Bit of a busy day, huh? Previously on this YouTube channel, I talked to you about the Toronto Maple Leafs trading Rasmus Sandin to the Washington Capitals in exchange for a first-round pick from the Boston Bruins, ironically, and Erik Gustafsson. And then Dubas decided it'd be fun on a Tuesday to go out and make 2 more trades. This dude made 3 trades in the span of an hour. The trade deadline is on Friday. Pierre Engvall has been traded, and Luke Schenn, welcome back. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, think you know which way it's gonna go? Head over to Sports Interaction. The Puck Drop Sports Interaction has you covered pre-game, live betting on all major sports, and prop bets. Want to bet? Head over to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN, but only if you're 19 plus. Please play responsibly. All right, let me see if I can remember. I did a hat picks video for the Sportsnet YouTube channel. I did a Patrick Kane trade video for the SDPN YouTube channel. I did the Sandin video for this YouTube channel. I did a Matthias Ekholm video for the SDPN YouTube channel, and I'm doing this video now on this YouTube channel. And I got a pair of puffers earlier today because I'm sick again. And how am I going to have a voice left for Friday? This has easily been one of the wildest trade deadlines in recent memory. And I worry that people are going to misremember it as a dud, because I don't know if anything is going to be left to happen on Friday itself, but the lead up has been bananas. So there were 2 trades that happened after the Sandin trade, and I kind of look at it as, even though the Leafs traded a guy out and brought a guy in separate deals, I look at it as kind of the guys were traded for each other. Here's the first one. The Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired a 3rd-round selection in the 2024 NHL Draft from the New York Islanders in exchange for forward Pierre Engvall. Islanders fans, he's listed as a left wing, I'm seeing on a few different sites. That's not really true. He started as a left winger with the Leafs. I personally think he's best playing the right wing. I think he's played his best hockey as a Leaf on the right wing, with David Kampf was probably his best center. And then he can play center in a pinch. I've liked him at times. I haven't liked him at other times. But he's got a $2.25 million cap hit. He's a UFA at the end of the season. So this deal is a hard buy for the New York Islanders. Pierre Engvall's raw ability is stupid. He's only 26, so he's in his prime. He's 6'5". He was the tallest Leaf. He weighs 215 pounds. And he was the fastest guy on the team. Easily the fastest guy on the team. To the point where his nickname in the dressing room was Biscuit, as in Sea Biscuit, the racehorse. Even if you're not sure about the guy's skill set, that is exactly the sort of player you take in the 7th round, 188th overall, just like the Leafs did in 2014. He can be a great penalty killer for you. I know he's filled in for the Leafs on the 2nd power play, but he never really got a shot in the top 6, and the problem is he never really earned it. A lot of Kasperi Kapanen qualities in Pierre Engvall, where you see these raw tools, these unbelievable talents that he has, but his decision making at times could make him the worst player on the ice. But the games where he wasn't the worst player on the ice, he looked like a magician out there, and someone who you couldn't catch, and someone who you couldn't outrace, and someone who could light you up. In the offseason, he talked about his desire to hit 20 goals. And after a slow start, he was on his way with the Leafs. Now he's going to have to finish that with the New York Islanders. I am fascinated to see what the New York Islanders dressing room does to Pierre Engvall, because this is a guy who, again, like Kapanen, I kept looking at and going, you could be the most annoying jerk in the league if you had a mean bone in your body. And like face washing after the whistles and like little cross checks, and he does this wide-eyed thing with his teeth. I don't even think he has a career fight to his name. And the difference between him and Kapanen, I don't know if I mentioned this, is he's 6'5", 215 pounds. Have you seen him with his shirt off? You probably have, because you'll learn if the Islanders ever allow a camera in the dressing room. I know Lou Lamoriello is your general manager. He will find it, and he will find it without a shirt on. He's chiseled like a Greek god. A team with like Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck and Casey Cizikas, you got to think is going to be like, what if you were a jerk? Fascinating player, man. There are going to be days where Lane Lambert and the whole Islanders fan base adore him as a god, and other days where you'll offer to drive him to the airport. For me personally, I'm sad to see him go, and I'm sad that if the Leafs go on this journey in the playoffs this year, I'm sad that he won't be a part of it. His first season as a professional in North America was the 2018 season where the Marlies won the Calder Cup. He got called up to the Toronto Maple Leafs finally, and Mike Babcock got fired the very next game. Engvall famously scored his first career NHL goal shorthanded in Arizona against the Coyotes in Sheldon Keefe's first NHL game as coach. To get a third-round pick for him is kind of underwhelming, but the Leafs needed to shed cap because, well, originally I thought it was to get Matt Murray off LTIR, but now I kind of think they're up to something. And speaking of up to something, the Leafs acquire Luke Schenn! Or should I say, reacquire Luke Schenn, my boy, my precious boy, who's only like 2 years younger than me. Welcome home! The reason I said Engvall and Schenn were basically acquired for each other is the Leafs traded a third-round pick to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Luke Schenn. Actually, you want to look at it another funny way? Forget the Engvall trade. Last season, the Leafs traded Travis Dermott to the Vancouver Canucks for a third-round pick. This year, the Leafs give a third-round pick to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Luke Schenn. Now, obviously, the difference is Dermott is hopefully going to be a Canuck for a while. Luke Schenn may just be a rental. I'm going to try to put into words why, but it makes me, emotional that Luke Schenn is a Leaf again. And I hate to sound old, but some of you are just going to be too young to fully appreciate this. The reason my LFR videos say LFR 16 is this is the 16th season that I've been making LFR videos. I started in October 2007. That was the 2007-08 season, meaning the first draft ever that I covered on this YouTube channel was the 2008 draft where the Leafs traded up twice to get Luke Schenn. Or was it once or twice? I can't remember. They either had the 9th and moved up to 5th or the 7th and moved up to 5th. They got Luke Schenn 5th overall. Here's how long ago it was. I've had a lot of people tweet Brian Burke's picture at me like, oh my goodness, what must he be thinking? You know who the first player Brian Burke ever drafted with the Leafs was? Nazem Kadri in 2009. It wasn't Luke Schenn. Brian Burke was not the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs yet when the Leafs got Luke Schenn. It was Cliff Fletcher the second time. A player Cliff Fletcher drafted to the Leafs just returned to the Leafs. Sometimes I don't realize how long I've been doing this until the Leafs reacquire Luke Schenn. I have printed out from Hockey Reference the Leafs roster from the night Luke Schenn made his NHL debut in October 2008. A 3-2 win over the reigning Stanley Cup champion Detroit Red Wings. Here we go. Nick Antropov, Jason Blake, Carlo Koliakovo, Jonas Frogren. He had an assist. He was a +2. Mikhail Grabovski, Nicholas Hagman, Thomas Kaberle, Pavel Kubina, Nikolai Kulemin. Kubina and Kulemin both had goals. Jamal Mayers. I work with him now. John Mitchell. Dominic Moore. He scored as well. Alex Ponikarovsky. Luke Schenn, who played 17 minutes in his debut and taking 27 shifts. Matt Stajan. Alex Steen. Yuri Tolusti. Mike Van Ryn. And the goalie playing all 60 minutes, Vesa Toskala. We were talking about Luke Schenn like he was going to be the next Scott Stevens, and that was tremendously unfair to him for several reasons. Number one, don't compare children to Hall of Famers. And number two, it was 2008. The way of guys like Scott Stevens, they were on the way out. Because Luke wasn't the most mobile defenseman. He could move for a big guy. I think he was still fast for his size, but he was still a really big guy. And over the years, as he went from 18 to 19, 19 to 20, 20 to 21, the pressure grew on Luke to become even larger than he was, to have more meat, more muscle, be more mean, which was actually the opposite direction of where he should have been going because it made him less and less mobile and less effective in the NHL that was coming into its own in a different way. It was evolving. It was becoming a league for smaller, faster guys. Now, speed still kills in the NHL. I think that has stuck around, but I think the league is slowly getting bigger. The little guys have their place, but it's slowly getting bigger. It's almost the market inefficiency. The last move Brian Burke ever made as the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs before being unceremoniously fired right before the beginning of the 2013 lockout season was trading Luke Schenn for James Van Riemsdyk. Now, JVR obviously ended up being sick, and Luke Schenn was, just like he was with the Leafs, taxed with a bit too much in a league that was heading away from his skill set. I mean, I remember watching Luke Schenn in person as a rookie. He was the best Leaf defender on the ice, like bar none. But after back-to-back 22-point seasons with the Leafs in his final 2 seasons with the Leafs, Luke would be traded to the Flyers and never hit 20 points ever again. There were injuries involved. He eventually went to the Kings, and then the Coyotes, and then the Ducks, which I don't even remember. And that's when he started getting demoted to the AHL with the San Diego Gulls. He goes to the Canucks, he plays a little bit for them, a little bit for Utica in the AHL. And then he goes to Tampa in the 1920 season, and he played 6 games in the American League even that season, putting up 6 assists, by the way. And then the world stops, and the bubble happens. And by hook or by crook, mostly by a bunch of injuries to Tampa Bay's back end, Luke Schenn ends up playing 11 games in that Stanley Cup run. And wouldn't you know it, Luke Schenn and the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup! And he hasn't played a single game in the American League since. What happened after that? I'll let Leafs reporting legend Paul Hendrick take it from here. Luke was very interested in returning to Toronto as a free agent after winning his first cup with Tampa. There wasn't a fit on the Leafs' end, and that enabled Luke to go back and win a second cup in Tampa Bay. Dubas now sees a depth role on his club for the Saskatoon native. All I'm saying is Tampa won back-to-back cups with Luke Schenn, and then Schenn left and they lost. There's a definite correlation. Also, not so bad having a guy like Luke Schenn who's been in that locker room and been coached by John Cooper and been teammates with all those Lightning guys. Now all we got to do is convince him to really not like them, because Luke Schenn is being brought to the Toronto Maple Leafs for the fact that he's evolved into such a great leader in this league. He's been basically keeping JT Miller in check in Vancouver, but also because he is an enormous hitter. And all of a sudden, this thing that Luke Schenn was supposed to cut his NHL teeth on, this thing that was supposed to be his entire brand, hitting and crunching guys and punishing guys and steering bodies away from the front of the net, that is what he's doing in 2023, a decade and a half after he was drafted by Cliff Fletcher and the Leafs. He finds his way back to Toronto, and now he's going to help the Leafs go for it. They're all in. They might not even be done after making 3 moves today, a move yesterday, and a move last week. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but that's 5 moves for the Leafs. And the Leafs still have a first-round pick this year. It's Boston's, LOL. And they have a first-round pick next year. I don't know if either of those picks are safe. I have no idea what the Leafs' next plans are, but I'm so thrilled for Luke Schenn to come back. I'm so thrilled he was even willing to come back. I mean, on top of the stress that it must have caused him being on Leafs teams that were so bad. His wife is due to give birth like any day now, as I understand it. This cannot be an easy time in Luke Schenn's life. So the fact that he was willing to give Toronto another shot means the world. And the Leaf teams he was on, they never had a shot at winning the cup. He was expected to do way, way too much. And now here he is as a complimentary piece. Who knows what happens next? What does that mean for the immediate future, the present? Because the Leafs have games on the road on Wednesday and Thursday. They have the Oilers on Wednesday. That'll be fun, especially for the new guys. Here's Connor McDavid in your first game in a new system. And then the next day, they take on the Calgary Flames before another game on Saturday night. So it's going to be 3 games the next 4 days, and the one day that they have off is the trade deadline. Here are the Leafs lines from practice today. Bunting, Matthews, Marner, we knew that. Tavares, O'Reilly, Nylander, we knew that. Engvall, Kampf, Yarncroak, Kerfoot, Achari, Lafferty, Aston Reese as the extra guy. The obvious thing to me is Kerfoot is just going to get moved up to the third line with Kampf and Yarncroak. That is a defensively responsible, somewhat offensive shutdown line. They can skate pretty fast. And then Aston Reese, Achari, Lafferty, just, that sounds like a miserable time. And then on the back end, Brody, McCabe, Riley, Hall, Giordano, Liljegren, Sandin, Timmins. Obviously, Sandin has been dealt. Does Luke Schenn replace Justin Hall in the lineup? Or, what if you do Liljegren with Riley and then Giordano with Schenn? That's a tough time. It's not the most mobile, but that's a tough time. They're going to try a number of things, but as hard a hitter as Sandin was, adding McCabe and Schenn to that back end makes the Leafs a little bit meaner, a little bit bigger, a little bit more miserable. That's exactly what they need, and who knows what's next. So, what do you think of those two deals? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. But for now, that is it for this one. I might be done making videos for the night. I don't know. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. I don't think Kyle Dubas is done.